Intermittent fasting is not the be-all end-all magical thing that everybody thinks it is, but it does have incredible benefits for mood, inflammation, longevity, and even fat loss. Yes, fat loss. In this video, I'm going to teach you the best fasting ratio to use and how to use intermittent fasting to lose the most amount of body fat. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and click the bell if you want to see more videos on intermittent fasting, fat loss, and also I teach people how to build muscle and get in the best shape of their life as well. This video is for people that already do intermittent fasting, so you already know how to do intermittent fasting, you're already practicing intermittent fasting. If you're not, I have a complete beginner's guide video on intermittent fasting, and what I recommend is just spend around 2 weeks pushing your first meal back around 4 hours after waking up. So if you wake up at 6 AM, push your first meal back to around 10 AM and then eat your breakfast then. Over the first 2 weeks, you should be able to then gradually push it back to 11 and 12 and then eventually 1 and 2 PM, that sort of time. If you've been watching my videos, then all of us know by now that to lose body fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit. Hopefully you all have that locked in. What intermittent fasting will do is allow you to hit that calorie deficit easier and allow you to lose more body fat faster. If you don't eat your first meal until 12 PM or later, it allows your body that time in the morning to first of all give your digestive system a rest, but also because you don't have any calories in your body is using your body fat for energy. So body fat's just stored calories, stored energy, and your body will use that to burn for energy because you haven't eaten any breakfast. Also, by skipping breakfast and not eating till later in the day, you allow your insulin levels to be lower, and you're able to keep them low without having any spikes in that fasting period. So let's get into it. So the most popular ratio that people will use is 16-8. So that's 16 hours of fasting, so no food in the body, and that obviously also includes your sleeping time, and then you have your 8 hours where you eat, so that's your feasting window. Let's say you ate your last meal at 8 PM and then went to bed, let's say around 10 PM. If you woke up at 6 AM and then ate your first meal the next day around 12 PM, that would mean you've had 16 hours of fasting and an 8-hour window. So from 12 till 8 PM is where you can eat your calories. This is where the first trick comes in. So now you have this 8-hour window. What I want you to do is reduce that window to around 6 to 7 hours. So start out at 7 and then you can bump it down to 6. That's like an extra 2 hours of fasting each day. So what you would do is if you ate your first meal at 12, you would now eat your first meal at 1. Do that for like a few weeks to get used to it and then bump it up to 2. So you wouldn't eat your first meal until 2 PM. Now obviously all these numbers are just examples and you need to adjust this to your lifestyle. What that's going to allow you to do is first of all those extra 2 hours allow for more autophagy, which is the repairing of damaged cells. But more importantly for this video, that extra 2 hours is going to allow you to burn even more body fat. That's one of the best ways to use intermittent fasting for fat loss, is to just take that extra 1 or 2 hours and push the meal back even further. For those of you out there that are worried about losing muscle mass that you've gained, I understand that, but you won't lose any muscle mass. As long as you're still training in the gym, you're still eating enough protein, which I literally just did a video on how much protein you need to eat, so you can watch that after this video. As long as you're getting enough sleep, you won't lose any muscle mass by fasting and pushing it even further. The reason is because when you fast, you have a massive spike in growth hormone. So if you're fasting, you have way higher growth hormone levels than a person who's just eaten breakfast. What human growth hormone does in the body is it spares muscle tissue. So because you have that spike from fasting of growth hormone, it prevents muscle breakdown, meaning you will keep all of your gains. As long as you're still doing your training and you're making sure you get enough protein and enough sleep, you will maintain muscle. My second tip for how to use intermittent fasting for fat loss is to stick to my 3 meals a day plan. What I mean by this is when you eat your first meal at 2 PM, you might eat a second meal at 4 PM and then your final meal at 8 PM. What you don't want to do is having snacks in between that. Every time we eat, we spike insulin, and we don't want to spike insulin. Eventually, you may even be able to get down to 2 meals a day where you eat your first meal at 2 PM, have another meal at 8 PM, with no snacks, but you don't have to do that. That's just something that some people like to do. As long as you're getting enough nutrients in those meals, then that's totally fine to do. What I want most of you to do is don't eat any snacks. Make sure you eat your 3 meals. All of those meals should be balanced with proteins and fats, and if you're eating carbohydrates, which most of you are, then you balance the carbohydrates as well between those meals. If you are allowing room for snacks in your nutrition and in your calories that you've worked out within that calorie deficit, then that's okay. What I want you to do is if you're like allowing yourself a chocolate bar at night or a chocolate bar as a snack, that's fine. You can still lose weight by having a little treat, and I actually recommend that so that you can stick to your nutrition plan and make it enjoyable for you. What I want you to do is just have that chocolate bar after the meal. So you eat your meal and immediately after, then you have your chocolate bar, then you have that snack that you planned. That avoids the additional insulin spike. What we don't want to do is have the meal, wait an hour or two, let the insulin go back to normal after you've eaten the meal, and then spike it up again with a chocolate bar or a snack. So quickly, the way insulin works is every time we eat food, the insulin levels spike. Insulin is an anabolic hormone, so it's good for growing things. Anabolic means to build and to grow. That's good if we're trying to build muscle, and that will help us. The issue is if we're trying to lose body fat, anabolic hormones such as insulin also grow the fat cells. So the more you're spiking insulin, every time you eat you spike insulin, the more you're doing that throughout the day, the more body fat you're going to gain and the less you're going to lose. That's why if you just stick to the 3 meals per day without the snacks, you're spiking insulin a lot fewer amount of times. In terms of what to drink and other things that you can eat and utilize throughout the day, during your fasting period, you must only drink water. That means no chewing gum, and that also means no calories during that period at all. If you want something like a 0-calorie monster, you don't want to drink one of those while you're fasted. Obviously, a 0-calorie monster is not a healthy thing, but if you're allowing yourself to have things like that in your diet, again, have that after your meal. Eat your meal and then immediately after, have your little treat. One trick that I recommend you all try is black coffee. So there's no cream, there's no sugar in the coffee. It's just simply coffee and hot water. It's one of those things that everybody, including myself, thinks sounds horrible when you first hear about it. But when you've been fasting for a few hours and your taste buds are a lot more sensitive, it's actually really enjoyable, and I really love having a black coffee every morning. What I recommend doing, and first of all, just be open-minded. Try it every day for a week and see if you can get used to it. If you can't after that, then I respect that. But what I recommend doing is wait till around 10:30, 11 a.m. when you first start to feel a little bit hungry, and then have a black coffee. You can also have one again around 1 p.m. if you're ending your fast at 2. You could have it around an hour before you end your fast. The black coffee suppresses your appetite. It allows you to just go that little bit longer during your fast. It also tastes quite nice when you've been fasting. And one of the main things, it's full of antioxidants, but the main thing is it boosts your metabolism. So the black coffee, even if you don't like it that much or don't think you'll like it, is actually going to allow you to burn more body fat. Another big tip is your training. So most of you, and hopefully you're doing weight training, you're going to be thinking, when should I do my weight training? Now you can eat your first meal and then do your weight training later in the afternoon, maybe an hour or two after your first meal. What I recommend doing is just giving this a try, and what it is training fasted. So you train whilst you're still in your fasting period and then eat immediately after your workout. This is going to allow you to burn even more body fat, and we won't be breaking muscle tissue down because of the spike in growth hormone, like I said earlier. The other type of exercise I recommend is walking. So do a 30 to 60 minute walk in the morning and then carry on your fasting period. That's going to allow you to burn so much more body fat by just going for like a 60-minute walk in the morning on an empty stomach. I don't recommend jogging or running on an empty stomach, and I don't always recommend HIIT cardio either. That can be too taxing on the body, but it is something you can do if that's what you're into. But back onto your weight training. So if you plan to break your fast at 2, what I recommend doing is starting your weight training around 1 p.m. and then you can train for an hour, and then at 2 p.m. immediately after, have your meal or your shake ready and break your fast. Now what you want to do for this meal, this is very important. If you're not training fasted, as long as you get protein within around an hour or 2 after your workout, that's okay. You don't have to eat immediately after. That is not the same situation as if you're training fasted. If you train from 1 to 2, you must eat immediately after that workout. What I recommend is a protein shake, such as a high quality whey protein. I don't recommend any brand. I don't do brand sponsorships. And then some carbs, so around 30 to 50 grams of protein and 30 to 50 grams of carbs. This is going to spike your insulin, which we do want after a workout to help build more muscle. But the key is no fat. Notice how I don't recommend any fat. You eat the fat and all of your fat in the next 2 meals. Don't eat fat after your workout. What this does is when you spike insulin with the lean protein and the carbohydrates, it opens the cell. What then happens is if you eat fat as well, that fat will immediately go into body fat storage. So the proteins and the carbs open the cell, the fat will immediately go in and add extra body fat, so you don't want to do that.